You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Wednesday, September 18th. The 49ers are bracing themselves for a Week 3 matchup without Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, but maybe fortunately for them, they're trying the Los Angeles Rams. They're in way worse shape than them. Joining me to talk about what adjustments we want to see from the Niners this week after their loss to the Vikings is Rob Stats Guerrera. Rob, how you doing, man?
Steph, I'm hoping for a recovery this week. That's how we're doing.
Recovery. Are you speaking in the literal sense or also, the figurative sense for the 49ers?
Yes. Let's get
the answer is yes to both.
Why
both
not?
of those, please. Yes, both of those. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what I want to start off with, that to me, this is the Rams 2020 season, if I've ever seen anything like it. Look at this IR list. And for the audio listeners, we're showing a list of the Rams injuries, and it looks like half of their team is on injured reserve right now. I'm just going to go through the key names. Cooper Kupp, he's not on injured reserve, but he suffered an injury last week, and he's going to be out for this game. Not officially, of course. That hasn't been determined quite yet, but all signs point to that as of Wednesday. And then Puka Nacua, he is on IR. And then they've lost a bunch of guys on their offensive line. I'm worried about the health of Matthew Stafford, genuinely, as a fan of football and just another human. I'm worried about Matthew Stafford because they have injuries to Joe Noteboom, Steve Avila, who was their starter at guard position, Jonah Jackson, and then a couple other corners as well, Darius Williams and Darion Kendrick. I'm looking at this and I see no reason why the 49ers shouldn't have success in this game. And so that's really what I want to start off with. To me, the 49ers have no excuses to, maybe they struggle a little bit, but there's no reason they should lose this game, in my opinion.
I don't want to see Rams 7 of 12 on third down when we're talking about this game on Sunday after it's over. No, there's just no team has 5 offensive tackles deep, okay? No team is 4 corners deep, which is where the Rams are right now. They're so banged up. The 49ers need to look great this week. Obviously, they need to win, but considering the rash of injuries and the cluster injuries that the Rams have, if the 49ers can't look good against them, then you really start to worry about what's on this 49ers team.
Yeah, and a comment here from Technic Chic that it sounded like the commentators on Rams last week's game that Stafford didn't look comfortable or healthy in the pocket. That's just Stafford, though. Dude is going to get banged up. I mean, through 2 weeks, he is going through the ringer, but he's a tough SOB, man. He will play through anything if he could help it. So I do expect, he's probably dealing with some stuff, but also, yes, he's probably going to try to play through it. So I'm expecting, and the 49ers should be expecting, that Matthew Stafford is going to be his normal self in this game. They definitely shouldn't think that, he's hobbled, we're going to get a lesser version of him. No, I mean, I think we know enough about Matthew Stafford that he is just as dangerous, and you definitely can't overlook him. But on the 49ers side, you're without McCaffrey, you're without Deebo Samuel, you just lost to the Vikings, and yet, you get to face a team that is in far worse shape than you. That is a great opportunity. So again, I don't want to hear any excuses. I don't want to hear, there's just some things we can't do without McCaffrey or now Deebo. Sure, we know that, okay? Those are some special players. Not everyone can do what they do, but I don't want to hear problems. I want to see solutions. And Kyle Shanahan has plenty at his disposal with this roster, even without Christian McCaffrey and Deebo. So that's kind of, the end all be all for me with this game, that sure, they might struggle and it might look kind of ugly. I don't care about that. It could look ugly. I just get the win. That's all I care about. And to me, there's 3 guys that need to be involved in this game. First one is Jordan Mason, because For the obvious reasons, he looks the part. He can handle it through 2 weeks. He's second in rushing yards. He's tied for the most 10-yard plus carries, 15 miles an hour plus rushes, first downs, broken tackles, and the Rams rank 30th in rushing yards allowed per game. So I want to see Jordan Mason to be the focal point of the offense. And even if the Rams allocate and sell out to stop Jordan Mason, I think he should still have success because I'm not scared of the Rams defense this week.
Run the hell out of the football. My father-in-law loves to say, when you pass, 3 things can happen and 2 of them are bad, right? It could be intercepted, it could be incomplete, or it could be caught by your team. Those are the 3. 2, he says, are bad. Run the ball. It's the only part of your team that has worked every game this season. Now, I know in the second half against the Vikings, it didn't work as nearly as well. In fact, it was pretty much shut down. But that's the only 2 quarters of the season where the running game hasn't been great. If you can run the ball and run the ball well with Jordan Mason, it protects you from turning the ball over. It helps you drain the clock. It saves you from doing the stupid things they did last week that put the Vikings in a position to steal that game.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to see more Jordan Mason. And another guy that I would like to see more of in this game is George Kittle, because he is still that guy you drafted. And it seems like it's kind of mind-boggling that we, at this point, get glimpses of what George Kittle still is. Like, it seems like that shouldn't be the case. And the 49ers maybe forget about him sometimes, but we know that good things happen when he is involved. Even last week, right? Like, I know the 49ers didn't win that game, but I felt like he helped move the chains. 7 catches, 76 yards, a touchdown. He could have maybe had a second touchdown had he got in the end zone before he got pushed out of bounds. But I want to see him featured in this game as well as a pass catching option without Debo and, of course, without McCaffrey. Put the ball where only he can get it. He's a mismatch problem. Definitely want to see more of George Kittle in this one.
100%. The offense should go through George Kittle while Christian McCaffrey and Debo Samuel are out. Throw him the ball. And I could hear Kyle saying, well, you can't just decide to throw it to George Kittle 13 times. Yes, you can. Dial it up, Kyle. I know you can do it. I know you're capable of doing it. Pierre Garçon led the league in catches one year with you, Kyle Shanahan. If you want to get the ball to somebody, you can do it. Get it to 85. They should run the hell out of the ball with Mason, play action, get it to Kittle. Who do the Rams have that even has a prayer of stopping George Kittle? Their whole secondary's on injured reserve, for God's sakes. Use Mason, use Kittle. You can have Ayuk there as the secondary complementary option, and you should be just fine. It's funny, like, what are people saying about Brock Purdy stuff? Well, now we're going to see if Brock Purdy's any good, because now all he has to throw to is an all-pro tight end, a really good running back, and a second-team all-pro wide receiver. Like, we've decided now that Brock doesn't have a good system, a good, group of weapons around him. He still does, and they just need to utilize them.
That's a great point. And I definitely do want to have that Brock Purdy conversation here in a bit. But yeah, I mean, he still has great weapons. Kyle Shanahan, the man behind the scenes who's, hopefully scheming things up for these 3 guys. The third guy here for me is Brandon Ayuk. And sure, Brandon Ayuk has been shaking the rust off, but he's still getting open. And so this narrative that he disappeared in week 1 week 2, or even in the first 2 weeks of the season is just simply not true. He was getting open in this game against the Vikings. Purdy needs to look for him like he used to. And he needs to pull the trigger quicker. When you see Brandon Ayuk open, you need to just throw it. And maybe it's that chemistry that they didn't really have that time in training camp that's kind of impacting that for Brock Purdy, and that he's a little bit hesitant right now. Not sure, but this needs to be the week where Brandon Ayuk has his breakout game of the 2024 season, and let's just put the rust and all that behind us at this point, because I think this is a prime matchup for Brandon Ayuk. We were looking at the corners that the Rams are missing. He's going to be going up against some backups, so there's literally no excuses, like I said, for Brock Purdy or for Brandon Ayuk.
I completely agree. I like the fact that it's interesting to me that the 49ers content creators are the ones that are pushing back on this Ayuk narrative. I feel like the Ayuk narrative of, oh, he's rusty, he's not good, he's not getting open, that's all coming from the national people because they're just looking at how many catches he had in the game and they're deciding that, okay, he must not have been open. And it's the Niners content creators that have kind of said, no, actually, he is getting open. And I want to see it from Brock Purdy. You're facing a divisional opponent, a team you faced before. This isn't, oh, Brian Flores confused the hell out of me with the scheme. Like, no, you know what you're going to get and take advantage of it.
And look, I understand that if you only watch like the broadcast and you only look at stats as well, which a lot of fans do, right? Like a lot of fans don't care to look at the details and extra context and look at the film and things like that. A lot of people don't have that at their disposal. So I feel like a bit of a responsibility, and I'm sure other content creators do too, to kind of clear that up. Like hey, it's not Brandon Ayuk. There's other things happening here that have contributed to Brandon Ayuk not getting the ball as much. And I think, Kyle Shanahan did think about that this week as well when he was asked about it yesterday, I believe, on Tuesday, that I mean, he was open. The opportunities were there, but it's more than just one or two guys responsible for getting the ball. There's so many other factors and so many guys that are also on the field, including the defense, that can also impact something like that not happening and Brandon Ayuk not getting the ball. So, yes, there's more to it. But like I said, I understand that for week 2. There are a lot of factors. There needs to be no factors in the way of Brandon Ayuk breaking out in week 2 against this Rams defense. I just simply will not accept it. So to me, that's the big 3 that I need to see involved in this game. And it's like I said, it needs to be a game that Kyle Shanahan digs deep and looks at the guys he has on his roster and thinks to himself, hey, I can get by with this, because I think a lot of other teams would be able to. So make it work. Make it work. And the Rams are definitely struggling. They're 0-2. You got to take advantage of that. So hopefully that's the type of game that we see on Sunday. But let's take a little quick halftime break here. Well, let me get to it. All right. So I've been telling you guys it's time to download the Locker app and join my league, the 49K League, on the Locker app. Have some fun making some prop bets, competing for the league prize money. If you use a promo code WIN, they'll match your first deposit up to $100. So hit the link that's in the bio. And for the audio listeners, it'll be in the description of this podcast as well to join the Locker app. And yeah, if you like gambling, it is a place for you. But Rob, there was something funny. Well, I think it's kind of funny. Maybe it wasn't meant to be funny, but Deebo Samuel debuted a new podcast yesterday with Bleacher Report, and his first guest was Brandon Ayuk. And you think to yourself, okay, like this has the potential to be pretty entertaining. For one, I thought it was just going to be Deebo Samuel. Like, I thought he was going to be the host, but we saw that he was not the host, and there's a woman who's kind of the moderator and asking the question. So really it's Deebo Samuel getting interviewed by this woman. And I don't know if it's going to be like that every single week. I kind of hope not, because I think it takes away from what we could possibly find out from these players or from Deebo Samuel. Like, I want to see more personality from these players. I think that's the cool thing about some of these player podcasts. You just get some insight from them. But if they're being asked like interview questions, I don't know if you always get those like genuine answers. But anyway, I want to play this clip because it was getting a lot of, I guess, churn in social media the past day. And so I just want to share this here.
What do you think, Ayuk, is going to help you guys? What is it going to take to get you over the hump and finally hold that Lombardi trophy? Maybe either from your team or from you.
Just everybody from today, these past 2 weeks, from today forward, doing whatever they got to do every single day to make sure that their best self when that time comes. So that's it. Kind of same thing. Kind of like be your best self, and like as long as you know you left it all out there, and like win, lose, or draw, like as long as you know you gave it everything, it's like you ain't got no regrets at all.
So it sounds like you guys are pretty convinced that as long as everybody shows up, there's no doubt that you guys feel like it can be your year.
Kind of like what he said. Like my eyes, like we've been on the best team in the league for a while.
So everyone's just got to show up. Everyone's got to show up, and then it's a wrap. It's a wrap for everybody else. We have.
All right, so my first takeaway. I know we'll talk about the comment of the best team in the league for a while, but as a fellow content creator podcaster here, Rob, I have to get your thoughts on the entertainment value of this podcast, of Deebo Samuel, of Brandon Ayuk. Thoughts?
Well, first, if I had to pick a receiver on the 49ers to have as my first guest, it wouldn't be BA. He's not, he doesn't like to do that stuff. That's not his personality. Juwan Jennings is much more outgoing and personable. I would love to have seen that. Also, nothing against Liv Mood, but she's having her there, like you said, I think makes it feel more like an interview than a conversation. If you just make it Deebo and have Deebo get into a football conversation with another football player, especially a teammate, you might get some juicy stuff there. But when it's there, right now, it feels too much like an interview. And look, I want to say this as somebody that has launched multiple shows, multiple national sports shows. Don't judge anything completely off the first episode. It's really hard to do. It takes time. How many times have you been watching a show or someone will say, hey, Steph, you got to watch this show on Netflix. The first couple episodes are bad, but then it gets really good. It's because it takes time to figure out what works and what doesn't. And sometimes stuff pops up organically and you're like, that was really good. We got to do more of that. So this episode was not good. It was bad, but let's wait until we pass judgment. But it was a rough listen for sure.
I couldn't even watch the whole thing. Like I was just like, I'm done. I'm done after like 10 minutes because I was trying to watch it to see if there was anything, interesting to kind of grab for conversation in this podcast. But I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to the clips because Ayuk has the personality of a rock. Like he just does, and I don't think he enjoys being interviewed. Like
no.
And the swinging in the chair was extremely hard for me to watch because it's all I can focus on as he's talking. It's so distracting. So again, just like from viewability, it's not great. And I don't know if he was nervous, but anyway, it just seemed like Ayuk. This was probably a one-time thing, doing a favor for Deebo.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, though, I did feel like Deebo's gotten better at interviews and just the media thing in the last like 2 years. I would say him being on like the Kay Adams show, for example. I think he opened up through that and he's gotten way more comfortable with that. And I think it does take him some time to get comfortable with people. So maybe this, like you said, it's probably going to take some time. But I feel like Deebo was kind of feeding off of Brandon Ayuk's energy, which was not great. And so, that just made for a poor first episode. But let's talk about the comment that Deebo made that, we've been the best team in the league for a while. When I first saw this pop up on social media, people clip the one quote and that's what they use as the headline or their tweet, right? So if you don't listen to the full clip and you just see that one quote, oh, Deebo thinks the 49ers have been the best team in the league for a while, you think eye roll, right? Like, I don't want to hear that after you just lost to the Vikings. Like, I don't want to hear that after you've lost 2 Super Bowls to the Chiefs. Like, I don't want to hear it. But I hearing it in the context of which the question was, I don't think that what he said was wrong. And I think that's where our frustration comes from, is that, they are the best team in the league. And they have been for a while. That's why we're all so upset that they haven't won a Super Bowl yet. And I think that's what he's kind of sharing as well, that like, hey, we have been the best. We have to get this done. So I don't think he was wrong to say that. I think he hit the nail on the head. And I think it just shows kind of what the mindset of this team is. Like, if we are really the best, we have to show it.
I think what he meant was, if we play our best, nobody can beat us. Like, we don't have to assemble the talent and then try to win the Super Bowl. We have the talent. We're talented enough to do it. We have to go out and do it. But you don't have to say it out loud, Steph. The attitude of this team as the uncrowned champions has been going on for too long. And it comes from Kyle, who told Tim Kawakami, oh, we should have 2 Super Bowls already. But you don't have 2 Super Bowls already. You know what? The Chiefs never say we're the best team. You want to know why? Because they don't fucking have to. They have the trophies in the trophy case. They just turn around and point. That's why they never say it. If you have to tell people you're the best team, you're not the best team. Any man that must say, I am the king, is no true king, to go Game of Thrones on you. So just shut up about that. Shut up about that. Stop telling us how good you are and start showing us how good you are.
I get it. It's definitely something that people are kind of tired of hearing without any actual action. And by action, we mean winning the Super Bowl to back it up. So, yeah, hopefully this is the year that we don't have to hear it and we could just see it in the form of a trophy. But, Rob, I know you got to get out of here soon. So we're going to get to way back Wednesday. And this one is a fun one because there's a lot of history between the 49ers and the Rams. All-time record between the two, 78, 69, and 3 ties. 49ers, of course, have the edge on that one, but there's been many great battles between these two teams. And in recent history, you think Kyle Shanahan and you think Sean McVay when you think of 49ers Rams. And so I wanted to go back and look at the first game between both of these head coaches, and it was in September 21st, 2017. And like I said, this one was a doozy. Here, let me remind you guys. For one, this might be the worst uniform combination game that has ever existed in the history of the sport. It was a color rush game, all right? You remember that? So the Rams were in all yellow, and the 49ers were wearing their all black uniforms. This is the worst. It looks worse close up if you could Google some pictures. But holy cow, terrible. But this was an entertaining matchup, to say the least. As you saw, the final score of that game was 41-39. So 49ers did lose that game, but they put up a lot of points. It was kind of a mess all around. 10 touchdowns between the two teams, 2 turnovers, and 17 penalties between both of them. It had a little bit of everything in this one. And if I may look at some of the stats in this game, Jared Goff had 3 touchdowns. Brian Hoyer had 2 touchdowns, an interception, and he was sacked 4 times, including at the end of the game. The 49ers did get the ball back in quite dramatic fashion. They had the chance to win it, and Aaron Donald got the sack on Brian Hoyer. Carlos Hyde also had 2 touchdowns. Todd Gurley on the other side, 2 touchdowns. So it was a run-heavy day for both teams. But Sean McVay prevailed that day.
So a couple things on this game. First of all, it was 41-26 Rams with less than 13 minutes to go in the game. The Niners were making this incredible comeback, and they got screwed on the final possession because they called a BS pass interference penalty on Trent Taylor on 3rd and 10. The Niners had completed a pass to Trent Taylor for a first down to move down the field that would have put them, around midfield on their final drive of the game. Actually would have put them in Rams territory, and they called a BS pass interference that made it 3rd and 20, and the Niners couldn't convert. And I've actually talked with Kyle Shanahan about this game because that offseason at the owners meetings, I was there with Pro Football Talk because I used to produce that show for NBC, and Kyle came by the set because Sims was there. And Chris introduced me that's the first time I ever met Kyle. And he introduced me and we were talking. And I was like, yeah, I remember that Rams game. It was bullshit that they called that pass interference penalty on Trent Taylor. And he was like, well, not only that, they did this, they did that. Like he started firing off other things from that game that like he was still fired up about. And this is like 10 o'clock in the morning, like the off season after that. And Kyle was still like ticked off about it, basically.
That's kind of cool. I didn't know you had met Kyle Shanahan before. That's a pretty cool story. And that makes me wonder how many other things like head coaches, Kyle Shanahan, of course, like would complain about if just in a normal conversation with someone. Because, like, in interviews talking to the media, you have to be very politically correct on all those things, and you can't really bash the refs or complain. That'll just not be a good look. But hey, he's a human just like we are, so I'm sure there's some things he'd be pretty angry about. Kind of makes me wonder about what he feels about the Super Bowls and some of those calls. But anyway, obviously there's a lot of history, like I said, between these two teams. Couple of 49ers that are now on the Rams. Jimmy Garoppolo, although he is suspended, so no chance we see Jimmy Garoppolo in this game. And one of the preseason favorites or training camp favorites, running back Cody Schrader, is on the Rams roster now. Probably not going to see him in this game either. But like I said, it's definitely fun to look back at some of these, memories between these two. Kyle Shanahan still has the edge over Sean McVay, 10-4 head-to-head in the regular season. McVay, as a head coach, is 70-45 with a 7-4 playoff record, 1-1 in the Super Bowl. Shanahan is 64-51 with an 8-4 playoff record and 0-2 in the Super Bowl, as we know. So,
thanks for bringing that up again.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Well, like I said, we're having a short show today. Rob's got a jet, no pun intended, but I have to jet as well. Trash Talk Thursday tomorrow with Monica of Football is Sexy will be at 2 p.m. Pacific. So different from our early time. So make sure you guys tune in at that later afternoon time. Everyone, like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Leave a rating, leave a review. Subscribe to Gold Standard Network. I do my Bully Ball show there with Jay every Tuesday. But for now, everyone, have a good rest of your Wednesday. Thank you, Rob, for joining, and peace.